We've been having some good conversations internally, James.
Yeah.
So,
Oh, good. Yeah.
yeah, I think it was quite good yesterday, wasn't it, to have that conversation?
I think so.
Yeah.
Right.
Are we live now?
I think so.
We're live
I'm
now.
sorry, I beg your pardon.
Oh yeah, you're right. Morning.
Good morning.
Yeah.
Settle yourself in.
Welcome to school. Back to doing exam.
We haven't started, so we're just about to start.
Okay.
So I'll just give you a few moments and then
Fantastic.
Would papers go up on the screen?
So, welcome everybody. If we're ready, we'll now kick off the meeting. It's just gone 10 o'clock. I think everybody that's going to be in the room today is with us. So just to introduce myself, I'm James Walton, and I'm the Treasurer to the West Mercia Suppliers Pensions Committee. The first item on the agenda is the election of Chairman. Are there any nominations for Chairman for today, please?
Nominate Councillor Buck.
Thank you. Is that seconded?
I'll second that.
Is there any other nominations? I'm assuming not. I'll ask the question. No, thank you. In that case, Councillor Butler, if you'll have to take the chair.
Thank you, James. All right, thank you everybody for coming in these strange circumstances. Item number 2, apologies for absence. Is there any further apologies?
So we have apologies from Lee Carter and Adrian Hardman, and Councillor Ray Evans is joining us remotely. So she'll be able to discuss and ask questions, but won't be able to vote on any of the items that she's not present in the meeting.
Item number 3, appointment of Vice Chairman. As the existing Chair and Vice Chair aren't with us today, do we need to defer that to the next meeting?
We can do if you have to do that.
Yeah, can you do better? Yeah, I'll propose
Want to move to
that.
the front or the chair can then?
Got a special chair at the front.
Entirely up-
Yes, it's exciting chat.
It's entirely up to you.
Might be easier, actually, I can see everybody. People want to
Make sure you
ask
turn your mic off.
questions. Yeah.
Look at that promotion.
Doesn't happen very often.
No.
Right, so still on item number 3, do I have a proposer that we actually defer that to the next meeting?
Yes.
Seconded? All in favour? Great, thank you.
Just make sure you use the microphone.
Sorry.
Thank
I will get there. It's okay. Thanks, yeah. So the appointment of vice chairman has been deferred to the next meeting. Item number 4, the minutes. Minutes of the meeting held on the 2nd of December. Is anybody in the room who was actually here at that meeting?
We were.
I think you,
Yeah, are you happy to move the minutes?
Yes, happy to move the minutes.
Okay, do you have a seconder?
Does anyone else think you were there, weren't you, Liz?
No, December.
You there?
I wasn't.
Right, so we have to defer them then, won't we?
Ray was.
Oh, yes, I was.
Yes, you were.
I was.
Yeah.
I can do that. Okay, perfect, thank you. The minutes are moved. Right, do we have any public questions at all?
No public questions.
Great. Item number 6, disclosable pecuniary interests. Anybody in the room got any? No? Great. Number 7, pensions liability charges 2021 to 2022. Over to you, James, please.
Thank you, Jack. So I'll give a very brief introduction just to kind of explain what this paper is about and how it all fits together. So when West Mercia supplies were sold off by the 4 owning authorities, and the West Mercia energy element was retained, the pension liability charges relating to the staff that work for West Mercia Supplies was retained by West Mercia Energy. There was a large pensions deficit that came with that, and that sat on the balance sheet of West Mercia Energy for the ensuing years. From the 1st of April 2020, the 4 owning authorities agreed to transfer that pension liability to a separate joint committee, the West Mercia Supplies Pensions Joint Committee, and so it was then agreed that the costs associated with that would then be managed by the legal authority, which is Shropshire Council, and then a mechanism would be put in place to ensure that those liability charges were agreed between the four owning authorities. So the paper sets out in section 6, in paragraph 6.3, it sets out the 4 elements that make up the liability charges. That is the deficit recovery payments, which relate to the existing pension, the compensatory added years benefits, which was a former mechanism whereby when people retired there was an ongoing cost that was paid annually for the cost of their early retirement. Section C is the costs incurred by the legal authority, and those are reviewed each year. And then Section D is a catch-all for any other costs that may appear over the years. In Section 7, 7.1 is the deficit recovery payments. The actual pension payments are agreed every 3 years through an actuary review, and a decision can be taken to either pay those 3 years separately each year, or they can be paid as a roll-up together. In the first year, that first payment was made, but in years 2 and 3, which is 21, 22, and 22, 23, those will be paid together. And on the 2nd of December, the committee agreed that those 2 payments will be made together for the future, for the remaining 2 years of the current 3-year agreement. So a total payment of £355,000 is due, which is around about £89,000 to each of the authorities. Section B, compensatory added years, is just the annual charge, so if accompanied by inflation. So that's approximately £8,000 for each owning authority. The local authority costs are broken down in table 3. So these are basically the costs of putting together the figures, producing the annual accounts, and the administration of this committee, and finally the cash flow implications for the legal authority. So to cut down on administration and try and make it as efficient as possible, the legal authority Shropshire will pay all of these costs on a regular basis, and then the agreement is that these will then be recharged halfway through the year for the to each of the owning authorities. So it's just a single payment that comes in halfway through the year, and that balances everything out. Because the 2 years were paid in advance of the pension liability, there was a cash flow implication over and above that for Shropshire Council. That's been estimated at about £1,000, and that's in that figure. But that will be reviewed at the end of the period to identify what the actual figure was, and then there'll be an adjustment. Table 4 just shows the adjustment in relation to the costs that were paid previously. So there was effectively an overpayment last year by the owning authorities of £1,700. The cost for this year are £3,190, which means there's just under £1,500 left to pay, £364 per authority. In terms of the other costs, we only have, which is set out in Table 5, there's only the actual cost up there. We haven't had any separate external audit costs for the audit of the accounts that are coming in the next item. So 7.5 sets out the overall costs. So all of those costs together come to £390,000, which is equivalent to £97.5 thousand to each of the member authorities. Payment, Section 9 is the payment mechanism. The agreement that was agreed last year was that the joint committee would meet before the end of September. They would agree the charges. An invoice would be raised then immediately by the legal authority, Shropshire, and then all other authorities would then pay the legal authority within 30 days of that invoice date. And by sticking to that mechanism, that reduces, as I say, the administration and increases the efficiency in relation to that. So, fairly complex paper, but quite simple in terms of the basics of what we're trying to do. Happy to take any questions. The recommendations are set out at the start.
Anybody got any questions? Yeah, Councillor Penn.
Thank you for going through that, James. That's quite comprehensive. Just obviously as a new member, in terms of understanding the makeup of this and everything else, obviously this is not connected in any way with the normal operation of Westminster Energy or whatever. It's historic pension deficit. I suppose the only question I've got in terms of the overall funding or the deficit is it in line with what it's been in previous years?
So yes, there's been a slight every year there's a slight adjustment, and every 3 years there is a complete review of those figures. The figures don't change significantly. It's in the order of £67 million is the actual liability, and now that it's been separated out from West Mercia Energy, it's much more transparent in terms of how that can all shift, because there are active members in the West Mercia Energy scheme, so those figures were amalgamated. Now you're just seeing the figures within WR's pensions, so no, those figures have not shifted significantly from previous years.
Anybody else got any other questions on item 7? No? Does anybody wish to move the recommendations? Thank you, Councillor Kent, seconded by Councillor Davis. Everybody in favour? Yep, lovely. Thank you very much. Thank you, James. I think it was quite clear. Good. Item 8, statements of accounts.
Thank you, Chair. Okay, so the statement of accounts and the annual government statement are set out in paper 8 and attached as the appendix to the report. So, as set out in the previous paper, given the way that this is now managed, we just need a separate set of accounts which literally deal with the pensions liability. So those have come onto the accounts in the 2021 financial year, and then the arrangements are set out within those. We've produced a narrative report, although it is very much historic and a close scheme, and we've produced the standard format of accounts. You'll see there's no entries for the 1920 year, but nevertheless those are the figures are there for comparison. In the on page 8 of the accounts, we've got the income and expenditure account, which sets out the charges going through the accounts, and then the pension liability coming into the accounts at that point, and within the balance sheet. you'll see that overarching figure in relation to the negative balance for pension liabilities which are there. Within the accounts this year, we have, which is on, turn to page 9, we have the debtors and creditors figure. So this is literally the figures that are coming in from the 4 owning authorities, which are the debtors due to come into West Mercia Supplies pensions, and then the creditors is the payment out to the legal authority that's already incurred the costs. These figures should be 0 because we agreed at the last committee, which was on the 2nd of December, that payments would be made before the end of January. It was a one-off for that particular year because the committee was held in December, not in September. Just to update in relation to that, the reason we have those is because a couple of the authorities didn't actually make the payment in line with the agreement. So it was approximately £55,000 charged to each authority last year. The invoices were raised just before Christmas on the 21st of December. Telford and Wrekin paid their contribution on the 27th of January, so that was within the limit. Shropshire Council paid theirs immediately. Worcestershire didn't make their payment until 16th of July, which meant that creditor was carried forward over the end of the year. Herefordshire, unfortunately, I have to report that as of yesterday, the debt from 2021 was still outstanding and still not been paid by the authority. So going back to the point earlier on in relation to trying to keep these things as simple, keeping out the bureaucracy, and make things as efficient as possible, I do need to make a plea, please, that the authorities do agree with the agreement that's been signed up to, and payments made within 30 days. We do need those payments to come in, otherwise we end up with a transfer of risk through to the legal authority, which was not envisaged. I'll just pause for a second as we.
We've got our newest councillor.
Councillor Harvey,
Sorry.
In terms of the rest of the accounts, I have to take any further questions. We put the notes to the accounts in there, and the annual government statement is included as best practice at the end of that statement. I have to take any questions.
Councillor Harvey, please. Yeah, first of all, I'd like to apologise for Herefordshire not having made that payment. I was unaware of that. Have you received any feedback from the finance team as to why that hasn't happened?
I've asked for it to be chased. It was only when I was reviewing the accounts myself that I was aware that payment hadn't been made. But I've asked for it to be chased.
Okay, I mean, I'd appreciate confirmation of when the invoice was issued so that I can follow that up as Cabinet Member for Finance. I kind of like to make sure that we were, having our Ronseal moments.
Yeah. To confirm, the invoice was raised on the 21st of December.
Crikey, okay. I will take that away. Apologies, everybody.
Would it be useful if James sends you an email outlining what's happened, and then you can forward it to your officers?
That would be super, yes.
Yeah,
I'm sure there's going to be a really good reason why it's fallen down a crack somewhere.
Yeah,
but we need to understand what that is and try and put some filler in it.
Thank you, Councillor Harvey, for your help in the matter. It's much appreciated. So statement of accounts, what are we moving anything there?
So yes, it's
My computer's just had a complete reboot.
okay. So if I just go back to the recommendation. So Joint Committee are asked to consider the finalised statement of accounts to be signed by the Chairman and the Treasurer, and to consider the annual government statement for 2021.
Okay. Do I have a proposer for that, please? Happy to move? Yeah. Seconded. Thanks, Ed. Okay, all in favour? Yep. Great. Thanks very much. Item 9, date of next meeting. Next meeting will be held in September 2022, the date to be confirmed in due course. Thank you all for attending. The meeting of the West Mercia Supplies Pension Joint Committee is now closed. Thank you. Can you let us know when we're not live, please?